You ever see a moment so strange, so precise, it feels like the universe blinked? That's what happened the morning my partner Ranger and I were patrolling Detroit Metro. Just a normal day on high alert. Vague intel, increased patrols, bad weather. The kind of shift where you're scanning everything, trusting your gut more than the briefing. Then this little girl, maybe 3 years old, in a yellow dress too bright for a gray February day, points past me and says, clear as a bell, "Bad man." That's it. Just 2 words. But the whole terminal froze like someone cut the power to time. Conversation stopped. Even the dogs paused. Ranger locked in, not on the guy we'd been tailing for 20 minutes, but toward the service corridor, a restricted access point only staff use. And suddenly I wasn't thinking about the bearded man with the backpack anymore. I was thinking about the girl, and what the hell she'd just seen that I hadn't. I dropped to one knee. "What did you say, sweetheart?" She looked me square in the eye. No fear, no hesitation. "Bad man," she said again, pointing. Not at the guy I was watching. Not at anything visible. Just a corridor, quiet and gray. Now I've been a K-9 handler for over a decade. Rangers never failed me. But that look in her eyes, that was something else entirely. And when Ranger pulled toward the corridor, no bark, just alert, I knew we weren't chasing the wrong man. We were chasing the wrong story. Let me back up a sector. 3 hours earlier, Margaret Chun was just a grandma trying to keep her granddaughter Emma entertained during a weather delay. They'd flown in from Phoenix. Mom was late, traffic was hell, and Emma wanted a pretzel. Margaret, 72 and stiff from the cold, said yes. That little girl in the yellow dress skipped toward the food court like nothing in the world could bother her. Meanwhile, James Morales, a baggage handler, was standing in that same airport, holding a package he was supposed to stash in a locker. Nothing illegal, they said. Specialty electronics. But the money, enough to pay for his daughter Teresa's cancer treatment, came with a silence clause. No questions, no inspection. Just deliver. James wasn't a criminal. A single dad drowning in hospital bills, yes. But he'd never broken the rules in 15 years on the job. He told himself it was fine, that the man on the phone, smooth voice, fake name, was telling the truth. But that morning, standing in the service corridor, his hand on the locker door, his conscience cracked. And instead of leaving the package, he opened it. Whatever he saw made his stomach turn. Now, back in the terminal, Emma had just pointed me away from the guy we were watching. Ranger was pulling hard. Something was up. I radioed for backup. Officer Williams arrived in seconds. The grandma looked mortified. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. But I wasn't hearing her. I was hearing that little voice say, "Bad man," and watching my dog's body go stiff like he'd smelled something that didn't belong in a place full of families and pretzels and layovers. That we moved on the corridor, casually. No alarms. Doors buzzed open. Ranger led. The lights flickered overhead, cheap fluorescent that buzzed like mosquitoes in a motel. Then he stopped, rigid, in front of a storage room. I announced myself. Silence. Then, "My name is James Morales. I work baggage handling. I'm coming out. I'm unarmed." He opened the door slowly, backpack still inside. Hands shaking. Eyes full of something I'll never forget. Not fear, not guilt, but relief. Like he wanted to be caught. "I couldn't do it," he said. "I had to see what was inside." It wasn't what they said. Inside that backpack were components for an improvised explosive device, carefully packed, professionally assembled, and taped to the inside. A photo of a sick little girl holding a drawing of butterflies. The rest of the story played out in controlled chaos. FBI got involved. Terminal lockdown. The threat was neutralized before it ever became a headline. But none of the reports would ever include how it started, with a child's instinct and a police dog's training converging on the same impossible truth. And Morales? He confessed everything. Told us about the call, the promise of payment, the desperation. About how his daughter Teresa was running out of time and options. About the GoFundMe that stalled. About the sleepless nights. About the voice on the phone that said, "It's harmless." But deep down, he'd known better. He just didn't want to admit it until it stared him in the face. The prosecutors went easy, relatively speaking. He was still charged, but his cooperation helped dismantle part of the trafficking network that targeted desperate people. His daughter? She got admitted to a clinical trial, not because of what he did, but because of what he didn't. 2 months later, Sonia Chun, Emma's mom and a pediatric surgeon, if you can believe the symmetry, helped fast-track Teresa into that program. She even visited James before the transfer to federal custody. "You made a terrible choice," she told him. "But you also made the right one, eventually. And my daughter saw that in you when no one else did." The last time I saw James Morales, he wasn't in cuffs. He was sitting beside his daughter in a hospital bed, reading her a story about butterflies. Ranger and I had been invited as guests. Therapy visit. Emma was there too, another yellow dress, just like before. The two girls laughed like old friends, like fate had tethered them together in a way none of us could explain. Before we left, Teresa whispered something into Ranger's ear. He sat perfectly still, eyes soft. I didn't ask what she said. Some things are meant to be kept between children and dogs, that I've worked security long enough to know that not everything adds up in a report. Some days you're trained to act. Others, you just trust what you see. That day, I saw a toddler in a yellow dress stop a disaster, and I still don't know how. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was butterflies. What do you think? Was James Morales a criminal or a father caught in an impossible bind? Did a 3-year-old really sense something, or did we just get incredibly lucky? Let us know in the comments below, because sometimes justice isn't about the law, it's about what you do when no one's watching. And if this story moved you, hit subscribe. Because real life? It's messier, weirder, and more beautiful than fiction. 2 months after that snowy day at Detroit Metro, I got a letter. A real one, not an email, not a text. Handwritten, postmarked from somewhere in Ohio. Inside, folded neatly, was a child's drawing. Crayon on printer paper. A little girl in a yellow dress standing next to a big brown dog. Above them, butterflies. Everywhere. Blue ones, purple ones. One that looked suspiciously like a jet plane with wings that NO signature. Just a sentence in big, uneven letters. "Thank you for helping my daddy be brave." It hit me harder than I expected. See, after the airport incident, life didn't go back to normal. Not really. Sure, the story died down in the press. The FBI took over the investigation, Morales got moved to a federal facility, and the airport returned to its usual rhythm of lost luggage, delayed flights, and overpriced coffee. But some stories don't end when the news cycle moves on. Some just go quiet, until they start breathing again. That's what happened when I got a call from Sonia Chun. "Officer Reynolds," she said, voice clipped but polite. "There's something I think you need to hear. It's about Teresa." I hadn't heard that name in weeks, but it came back instantly. The girl with the butterflies, the reason Morales made the hardest right turn of his life. "She's gone?" I asked, my gut sinking. "No," Sonia said. "She's doing better. In fact, much better. But there's more. You should come down." 2 days later, I found myself standing in the pediatric oncology wing of Detroit Children's Hospital again. Same place Ranger and I had visited for that therapy visit. Except this time, it wasn't Ranger they wanted. It was me. Sonia met me in the hallway, looking tired but focused. "She's been having dreams again," she said without preamble. "About the airport, about the butterflies, and about a man in a black hat." Now, I'm not the kind of guy who buys into spiritual visions and kids predicting the future. I work with scent, behavior, evidence. But the way Sonia said it, calm, clinical, like she was reading off an X-ray, it made me pay attention. "She says he's not done," Sonia continued. "She doesn't know what that means. But she says something's not finished, that someone else got through." At first, I brushed it off. Kids say things, especially sick ones. Their worlds blur, dreams, fears, TV shows, hospital beeps, it all blends together. But then Sonia handed me a photo. Airport surveillance, timestamped 2 hours after we detained Morales. A man in a black ball cap, walking confidently out of a maintenance access door, one that should have been sealed that we'd missed him. The FBI hadn't. They traced him back to a shell identity, fake credentials, No background. They believed he was Morales' intended contact. Someone meant to retrieve the package after Morales dropped it in the locker. But Morales never made the drop. So what did the man take? They didn't know. But 2 days after that footage, a customs warehouse in Chicago burned down under suspicious circumstances. No casualties, just lots of missing inventory, including certain chemical components that, according to folks who know more than I do, could be used to build something a hell of a lot worse than a homemade bomb. Now it was my turn to feel that same twist in my gut Morales must have felt. We stopped one disaster. But maybe not the whole plan. I asked to see Morales again. The Bureau agreed, reluctantly. He'd already pled guilty. Sentencing was pending. But when I sat across from him, same prison beige jumpsuit, same quiet sadness in his face. He looked different, like someone who'd made peace with the fall, but not with the landing. There was another guy, wasn't there? I asked. Morales hesitated, then nodded. I never saw his face. They kept me away from that side. Said the less I knew, the better. But the voice on the phone changed toward the end. Colder, less convincing. He rubbed his hands together, raw and red from the dry air and prison soap. I backed out, he said. But that man, he didn't. And if he got what he came for, I didn't need him to finish that sentence. What followed was a flurry of briefings, follow-ups, interagency coordination, the works. But the truth? We were behind. Again. And this time, there was no little girl pointing at the danger. Or so I thought. Because Emma Chun hadn't forgotten a thing. A week later, I stopped by their house to drop off something Ranger had left, a chew toy, an excuse. Sonia answered, ushered me in. Emma was on the floor, drawing again. She looked up, eyes lighting up. Hi, police doggie's friend. Hi, troublemaker. I smiled. She held up her drawing. Another scene of the airport. But this time, there were two men. One holding a box, the other with no face. Just a hat. Mommy said you caught the bad man, she said seriously. But not the one who hides. I crouched down. You mean the man with the hat? She nodded. He smelled wrong. Like burnt crayons. It sounds absurd, I know. But Ranger had once found a smuggler by detecting the residue of old explosives masked inside candle wax. Burnt crayons? Who's to say what a kid's brain connects? Sonia and I looked at each other. She was already reaching for her phone. That drawing became part of a profile. That smell, odd as it seemed, helped the FBI cross-reference storage facilities recently targeted for theft or fire, ones that might have used paraffin wax to disguise transport. 2 months later, in a truck stop in Nebraska, a man matching the black hat profile was arrested trying to pick up a crate marked as machine parts. Inside, precursors for a military-grade explosive. Would we have caught him anyway? Maybe. But here's the kicker. In his wallet, a folded, stained page from a children's book, butterflies drawn in pen across the margins. His handler, they later confirmed, had used dreams, metaphor, myth, to manipulate operatives into believing their actions were part of something divine. Morales resisted it. Emma felt it. Teresa dreamt it. I just followed the thread. And now? Well, now Ranger and I still patrol the airport. But sometimes, when it's quiet and the fluorescent lights flicker just right, I find myself looking out across the terminal, wondering what else we miss when we assume we're the only ones paying attention. Because in this whole mess, from Locker 47 to Butterfly Dreams, the clearest eyes weren't mine. They belonged to two little girls. One fighting for her life. The other, seeing the world the way it actually is, not the way we tell ourselves it. Should be E.So tell me this. What do you believe in more? Training or instinct? Because maybe the difference between disaster and redemption is just a crayon drawing in the hands of a child. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're still watching, hit subscribe. There's more to this world than meets the eye. And sometimes, the smallest voices tell the biggest truths.